In this video, we're going to be taking a 1,000-foot view of the CRM system that's built into Lizzy and some of the parameters that you can use for setting it up and managing your sales staff. Now, getting started, we're going to go up here to settings, and then we're going to go to contacts, and you'll get a list of all of the parts of the application that you can use that you can set things up in. The first thing, we're not going to go through an in-depth review of every single one of these controls. We're really going to keep this pretty high level. I really just want to kind of introduce you to what's here and some of the features that you can use if you want to. Now, the contact types that we have in Lizzy are they're here to help you break your contacts down. They're not really, there's no special features. There are special contact types such as supplier and manufacturer and those kind of things that are hard built into the system. But as far as you creating your own contact types, you can create as many as you want. You can use them any way you want. They don't influence who you can invoice and who you can't. They're really just there to help with mass emailings and constant contact interfaces and that kind of thing. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Your contact positions are used on your additional contacts controls on your contact record. And they're really, you don't have to use them, but they're there if you want to say this person's a sales manager versus the owner versus a homeowner, whatever it is that you want to do. It's, you kind of determine whether or not you think it's useful for your application. The phone entry types are the types of phone numbers that you actually want to collect: mobile, home, office, that kind of thing. The one thing here is if you want to show a phone number in the purchasing section, if you're dealing with a supplier, or on an invoice, if you're dealing with a customer, then you can turn on those parameters. You can also specify what you want the default phone type to be when you're actually creating a new contact record or adding a new phone number. The call wizards, we're not really going to get into at all, but the call wizards are here to allow you to set defaults to prompt your salespeople for information that they may be forgetting to get, such as a lead source when a new lead comes in. So lead sources or call wizards gives you that kind of capability. Relationships, the different types of relationships you have between contact records. Your correspondence types is something that we're going to take a quick look at. The correspondence types are the things that you do with your customers. So as an example, I have a sales call outgoing, a sales call incoming. I have a face-to-face that I could do with the customer. Those types of things are what we're setting up in here for the correspondence types. The only thing that you're really concerned with respect to using this for a sales department is that we want to make sure that we have this use progress level turned on for any correspondence types that relate to the sales department. That is what keys the system to start tracking that sales progress as you go from initial contact to the final sale. So if you want to turn it on or off, when you edit a record, you'll see the use progress level up here that you can turn on and then hit the save button to save it. The next thing we have here are form email groups, which is just a way to group your different form emails if you end up with a bunch of them. Your form emails is a pretty important part of Lizzy in the sense that it's where you go to define what the email is that is going to be sent out when a special order arrives, or what email are you going to use when the system, when you order a part for a service ticket or certain things like that. Those things are what we call hooked to a certain part or a certain function inside of Lizzy. You also can have generic form emails that you can send out anytime you want with sales literature or a welcome email or whatever it happens to be. So you can define as many different form emails as you want to have in the system. There are obviously a limited number of them that are actually have automatic hooks, but nonetheless, the form email section is where you go to set all of that stuff up. Your sales progress level is where you go to define the levels that you want to have to track that sales process. So obviously you're going to have an initial contact. It may be a sales lead or a lead source or not a lead source, but a lead. Those things are defined by you when you set the system up, and you want to make sure that that initial contact, that initial thing that sets this thing off, is tagged as the initial contact, and that's what this checkbox here is. And when you edit the record, you'll actually see the checkbox. You can only have one initial lead in here, but that's basically telling it the very first thing that we're going to tag. If I tag it as that, then that tells the system that this is the initial step in this process. You can also set the sort order if you want to. Now, the other thing that we set here is our sold level. The sold level is basically telling us the final transaction, the final step in this process, so that Lizzy knows that we start here and we end here, so that she can kick off certain things that might happen or might be set to happen when the sales is complete. The other thing that we have here are the days to call back. So in this particular example, when I set a contact as an initial lead and I log a telephone call and I hang up, the system is going to look and it's going to say that I need to schedule a call back in 1 day for that particular process. Now, when I get to that they may be interested, then that one is set to 0, which means Lizzy's not going to do any scheduling of a callback at that level in this particular configuration. When I get to the initial quote stage, Lizzy's going to automatically schedule a callback in 5 days. So the system, basically, if you leave it 0, the sales rep is responsible for setting the callback. If you set a day in here, then Lizzy will automatically schedule the callback. The one downside to doing the automatic scheduling of the callback is that if the customer tells you that they want you to call them back next Tuesday, or they want you to call them back in 3 days, the system is going to look and see that you've got an automatic scheduled callback, and it's going to trump anything else that you want to set. So the process in that scenario is that you would have to let Lizzy schedule the callback for tomorrow, and then you're going to have to go back to your calendar and actually move it to whatever day the customer said to call. So there is a way around it, but you just have to understand that if you tell Lizzy to default this thing, it has to default it no matter what is going on. The final thing in here that you can take advantage of is the days without contact. This is basically telling the system that in this particular configuration that if a sales rep has not called a customer for 3 days and they were scheduled to call them 3 days ago, then I want to be alerted to that fact so that I can get on the sales rep, or I can call the customer and make sure that we're taking care of the customer and that we're staying in touch with them. All that is a notification, how many days to wait before the sales manager is alerted to that type of a process or that type of a problem. So the next thing that we have here are our automated correspondence. Automated correspondences are used where, for example, I sell a unit, I close the unit out, and I want to have Lizzy automatically schedule an email to go out in 3 days, making sure the customer's happy. I want to schedule another email in 6 months to remind them to come in to get their oil changed or to get some service done. I want to do it another time in a year. So this is something that when that process happens, it's going to schedule these things and start kicking off these emails or telephone calls. You also have the ability to create manual entries, and the manual ones you have to kick off. And you'll notice up here at the top, I have a customer located, and there's a little icon here. And when I click it, it actually asks me which correspondence I want to start kicking off. And so it looks at that correspondence, what needs to happen, and it creates the necessary events to make sure that they all take place based on that particular contact record and that particular event. So if I come up here, for example, and we click on this after sale campaign, you're going to notice that 3 days after the sale is complete, we're going to send out a post-sale follow-up. That is a telephone call. You'll notice here it says follow-up callback event. So if you put something in this field, the system is automatically going to schedule a callback for the sales rep this many days out. You'll notice this one is a 7-day out, and so 7 days afterwards it creates an entry with this title on it on their activity panel to call that particular customer. Now, this final notice you'll see in 365 days, I want to email the customer. So I'm going to be doing a form email. So the system is automatically going to send them an email. Plus, I want to have the sales rep call them again to ask them how things are going. So you have the ability in this particular control to set up a series of events that kick off based on this title, this main thing that I have created, and then select how many days I want to actually go to kicking them off, and then whether I want to have a sales rep call them or whether I want to have an email sent to them based on that particular thing happening. So the system, and then looking down the side, you've also got lead sources. If you want to track where leads are coming from, you can set up lead sources, reasons for no, why did the customer not purchase the bike or not purchase the product, brands. The topic and subcategories give you the ability to further categorize your telephone calls so that you can determine how many of them are coming in based on one issue versus another. Probably not something that everyone would need to use, but it is there. Sales campaigns, custom tables actually gives you the ability to create your own fields in the system to keep track of data that we may not have in Lizzy by default. And you can search on it. You can, have it there for informational purposes. So that's your custom tables. Surveys, I want to create surveys to send out to customers and then be able to do reporting on the survey responses. Checklists, sales regions, setting up different regions for different sales reps, industry publications, and then finally the ability to import contacts into the system from an external source. So we're not really getting into the major usage of the system right now. That'll be done in some other videos that we're going to be doing, but this video's purpose was really to kind of get you started on some of the things that you can set up in the system to start taking advantage of more of the advanced CRM processes.